Utah Blockcast. I'm Steve Bartle, Utah Insider for KSL Sports. On today's episode, we're going to take our first look at the Wyoming Cowboys and preview the matchup this weekend between Utah and Wyoming. To help me do that, I welcomed on Cody Tucker of 7220sports.com to preview it and take a deeper look at the Wyoming Cowboys, what they're about through 2 games this season, and to get a better sense of where this program is at. And, looking at the Cowboys coming into this one 2-0, they've got some things working for them. A quarterback in Caden Anderson, a defense that is aggressive and has some playmakers. So, excited to talk to Cody and learn a little bit more about the program and sort of what's the vibe around the program. All in all, I think this is going to be a pretty competitive matchup, but one that, again, should come down to Utah playing their game. And as long as they do that, should be able to win and win comfortably in this one. But again, I think, this one, Wyoming is going to come into this one feeling pretty confident and looking to make a statement. So it's going to be up to Utah to take care of their business. I think, honestly, I think this is going to be the toughest matchup for Utah in their non-conference schedule, with the way that UCLA and Cal Poly obviously being an FCS program, but the way that UCLA has played, the last 2 weeks. We'll see. But I think Wyoming has been pretty competitive. There's a lot of motivation under Jay Savell to get this program headed in the right direction. And, there's a good atmosphere, a good culture being built under Jay Savell in Laramie. So, so without much more from me, let's get to my interview and my conversation with Cody, which went about 30 minutes. It was a good conversation, and I think really insightful, not only into the program, but he also shared some thoughts, some feelings about the rivalry as well. So let's get to it. All right, let's talk a little Wyoming football, and to help me do that, Cody Tucker of 7220 Sports, hopping on the Utah Blockcast to talk all things Wyoming. And Cody, man, I appreciate you taking some time. We've interacted in the past. I slid into those DMs, messaging you about, Justin Stevenson, and we've kept in contact since that point. And man, I appreciate you hopping on. I know I'm looking forward to this game this weekend.
Yeah, man, anytime. I really miss this rivalry myself. I grew up here in Wyoming and grew up not liking Utah at all. It's obviously different now in the seat I'm in, but it's fun, man. It's a fun game. Always is.
No, definitely. I was a little bit too young to remember all the heated matchups of this contest and all that, but I hear all the stories, and man, there are some stories, and people have plenty of experiences. So I know a lot of Utah fans are going to be traveling to the game, which just makes that atmosphere all the better, I think.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I've made that trip to Rice Eccles myself as a fan numerous times. I've never left there in a good mood ever. In fact, I think the last one I left was against my will, and that's when Kyle Whittingham popped the onside kick up 43-0 back in 2007. So I had seen enough anyway.
Yeah.
So it was time to go home.
Yeah, that game is that game is a fond memory for Utah fans. I'm sure it's just the exact opposite for Cowboy fans. So we'll definitely looking forward to it. Obviously, the last time these two teams faced was quite a while ago, 2010, in Laramie, actually. So this will be the return, and I think there is kind of an interesting amount of excitement for this game because of how intertwined these two programs were, how heated this contest was. And I know, like I said, a lot of Utah fans are going to be traveling for this game. And so this will be a fun one. And I think, I'm glad to have you on so we can dive into, the Cowboys and what they're about. I think Utah fans got a little taste of, what Wyoming is about, hearing from head coach Jay Savell and what he had to say about the Cowboys or about Utah and about kind of this contest. But I'd be curious, just, he enters his second year as the head coach. He's been there since 2020. What do you make of Coach Savell and what he's done for that Wyoming program?
I think it's incredible, to be honest with you, and we're starting to see the results. It's a tough act to follow. Craig Bohl is the longest tenured head coach in Wyoming football history. And, he only finished with a 500 record, but the mess he took over when he got here was nothing short of massive. And he did a masterful job, and they needed a tough, hard-nosed guy to do that. However, no offense to Craig Bull, obviously covered him for a long time, but they needed a new voice, a younger voice, a guy who's not as old school, in my opinion. Craig hated the transfer portal with a burning passion and wasn't utilizing it. Wyoming was losing a lot of guys. It's a big development program. And, nowadays you just can't bring in high school dudes to replace, productive football players. You just can't do it. So it needs to be a healthy mix, but more so on the transfer side. And where I think Jay has really excelled is Craig was very much a CEO, and the proof's in the pudding. He won 3 national titles at North Dakota State. It is what it is, and he's a really good coach and respected, and he'll be in the College Football Hall of Fame one day, and rightfully so. But I think they needed a guy. Jay works out with the team, and I know a lot of fans like to mock that because of how last year went, but he let them have names on the back of their jerseys. That's a big deal to young kids. Right. He gives them a third alternative jersey, things like that are important to young kids. And, he really changed. That's his kind of stamp on things is he comes up and talks to you every day and he texts you every day. And you see it in recruiting. They got a guy, Dion DeBlanca, a true freshman who's their punt and kick returner right now. This guy had offers, not PWOs. He had offers from Oregon and Arizona State and Texas Tech and schools like that. But he said, man, when the head coach is texting you every day and the head coach is coming to see you, it's not like he's saying, hey, offensive coordinator, why don't you give this kid a shout and text him every once in a while and see how he's doing. It's every day. How's your mom? How's your dad? I think it's a breath of fresh air in that way. And he learned a lot in this first year, man. It was a 3-9 year. They lost 5-6 games by 10 points or less, but man, it didn't seem that close. Until you look back, because the year prior, Craig Bull's last year, they won those 5 or 6 games and ended up winning 9 total. They won those by 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 points. That didn't happen last year. And there's numerous reasons for that, but he didn't celebrate beating Washington State in the finale in Pullman. He came home and he went to work and he called dudes into his office. And I think the thing that, people forget about the transfer portal and forget about free agency basically is coaches can tell you to kick rocks too. Yeah. And, I think everybody is so gun shy around here that they go, oh, here we go again. And they're leaving for greener pastures. Well, some guys are told to hit it. And that's what happened at the end of the year. He told some dudes to hit it. And he said, I'm going to build this thing in my image and we're going to have depth and we're never going to get caught with our pants down again. And so far, so good. I mean, you got to keep everything in perspective. It's Akron, it's Northern Iowa. But man, so far so good. If you told me 3 months ago that 9 new starters on defense were going to pitch a shutout on the road to start the year against a really nice quarterback in Ben Finley, and then they're going to come home and give up 7 against Northern Iowa, even though 3 penalties were called on the defense on the 1 scoring drive, which really aided the Panthers. I mean, it was that close to another shutout. So they have depth across the board, which is something they haven't had in years. 28 guys played on the defensive side of the ball on Saturday. Last year, they were lucky to get to 17, 18. So he rebuilt this thing, and he rebuilt it with guys that have a chip on their shoulder. And Wyoming, arguably their best defensive player right now, just spent the last 3 years at Oklahoma Baptist. And if you can tell me where Oklahoma Baptist is, I owe you $1.
Yeah. I love that. And I think that's important context to begin with, right? Because this is a new era, a new head coach going into his second year. And I'm glad that we're talking about this, but I think it's important too. I want to take a step back even further because, a pretty important figure in Wyoming football history, Josh Allen, is going to have his jersey retired this season against later in the year, November 22nd against Nevada. What has Josh Allen going into the league, making it to the league, and not just making it, but becoming what he's become? What has that done for the Wyoming football program and brand?
Well, his story is exactly what I was just talking about. A guy from Oklahoma Baptist comes here after 3 years, Braden Johnson, and is PFF's highest rated, linebacker over the last 2 weeks. And he's a guy who was overlooked and ended up being a Division II guy. And Jay Sawvell said it in his press conference 2 days ago that, this is a guy who he should have been a Wyoming Cowboy for the last 3 years. And Josh Allen is that, man. He came from nothing. Everybody knows his story. But he is, you hear guys all the time say, hey, I came here because we saw what happened with a guy like Josh Allen. You can get where you want to go at the University of Wyoming. And what I love is during the Super Bowl, the university looked forward and they're hitching their wagon to number 17, and they rightfully should. And they bought a Super Bowl ad for a couple $1 million that said, hey,
I remember that. Yeah.
They said this is where underdogs are made, and really it's the truth. And Josh Allen is a poster boy for that. He's worth his weight in gold. When they first said they were going to, this is kind of a thing. I've known about it for a long time. But when they said, we're going to retire his jersey, my first thoughts are, man, there's so many other guys that were so much better and they were here for 4 years and all that. And then when you stop to think about it, though, what that guy's worth as he's the best ambassador this university's ever had. Yep. This university had a vice president in Dick Cheney, for instance. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I'm not getting into politics by any means, and I know plenty of people can't stand Dick Cheney, but, this guy, an NFL football player, an NFL quarterback, an MVP, he is by far and away the best ambassador this university ever has. The other night before he shocked the Ravens and shocked the world, they say during introductions, it's Josh Allen, go Pokes. That alone is worth so much, and the university is hitching their wagon so much to him that – they are even sponsoring a Bills game later this year against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's going to be University of Wyoming signage all over Highmark Stadium in Buffalo, and he's turned Wyoming from a lot of diehard Denver Broncos fans. And I tell you what, man, I am not a fair weather cat whatsoever. Obviously, I'm a Buffalo Sabres fan. I'm not a fair weather cat, but I watch the Bills. I watch the Bills. I do. I do. He's exciting. He's awesome, and we're all really proud of him.
That's awesome, and it's great to hear about these types of figures, right? Utah's got Alex Smith was always that guy, and so it's great to hear that, and obviously I think Josh Allen has done such a tremendous job in Buffalo, and I think there's a lot of Utah fans that are also paying close attention to Buffalo with Dalton Kincaid being there, Cole Bishop being there as well. So, all right, enough about kind of the bigger picture here, but you are 2-0. You knocked off Akron, you knocked off Northern Iowa, and I think in two different fashions, right? That Akron game was just kind of a defensive slugfest, and yet the offense in game 2 against Northern Iowa kind of got things going. So I want to start with the quarterback, Caden Anderson, what he's been able to do, what he's meant. 61% completion percentage, 427 yards. What sort of player is Anderson on the field, and what does he mean to this offense?
He's a dog, man. I'm sure you saw he got absolutely lit up on Saturday. I saw him walking through the parking lot at War Memorial Stadium Monday, and I said, man, it's good to see you walking. It's good to see you standing up. He got drilled. So he's tough as nails, for one. This is a kid who was being recruited by the TCUs and the Oklahoma States of the world out of, national powerhouse South Lake Carroll High School in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. When Quinn Ewers went to Ohio State a year early, it was Caden Anderson's gig, and Caden Anderson was his backup and then took over the gig. This is a kid who tore 2 ACLs, and the Oklahoma States and the TCUs quit calling. Wyoming stuck with him, and he's got the moxie, man. Last year in a game in Albuquerque, his first career start against Devin Dampier, Devin was electric, as he always is, of course, but Caden went toe-to-toe, punch for punch with that cat. And one of the most impressive things I saw that day was Caden had one mistake. He threw a pick in the red zone, and behind the play, he's face-to-face with a defensive end, headbutting a defensive end and getting into it and jawing with him. And he's a dog, man. He's a dog. Yeah. And I talked to some New Mexico guys at Mountain West Media Days, and they remembered. They thought, oh, cool, we got this rookie coming in. This is a 2-win, or at the time, a 1-win football team. We're going to kick Wyoming's ass, and especially with this young punk under center. And he didn't back down, man. And he's such a cool dude, too, just laid back, but a dog. And his teammates absolutely love him, and so does his coaching staff. And sometimes, I urge fans to sometimes pump the brakes a tad, though, man.
Mm-hmm.
You're at South Lake Carroll playing on ESPN and all that good stuff. I mean, it's as big as it gets at the high school level. But he tears 2 ACLs, then he comes to Wyoming and is rehabbing his second ACL his first year here. This is a guy who hasn't played football in a few years. And, that was only his 5th start on Saturday. And I just think he brings a calming presence, and the guys just absolutely love him. And he's got all the tools to get it done. I mean, even though he has 2 torn ACLs, he's not a sitting duck back there by any stretch. So I think they're really tight, and I think they really this team really likes each other a lot, and they really rally behind that kid.
That's important stuff. When you've got a leader that you can rally behind at the quarterback spot, that's a big deal. And you brought up that New Mexico game last year. That was a 49-45 game with Wyoming getting the victory. And Caden Anderson, just to kind of, provide the details there, was 20 of 29, 69% completion rate for 342 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. That's pretty impressive stuff.
Yeah, and he ran. Yeah.
That's impressive.
And, he outdueled Devin Dampier. Devin made one mistake in the 4th, threw a pick 6, and he has a lot better horses around him now in Salt Lake City than he did in Albuquerque. But the other thing is to see the Cowboys fight like that. That was a 1-win team at the time, and they go into Albuquerque and they win that game. And they also gave Boise State all they could handle in their home finale, and then go on the road and win in Pullman. And Anderson wasn't under center. He sustained a concussion against Boise State, and I think a lot of people will die on the hill that if Caden plays that whole game against Boise State, the Mountain West would probably be a whole hell of a lot poorer right now.
Oh, okay. All right. That's impressive. All right. So I want to switch gears to the running game, because watching some clips, Sam Scott is impressive, man. Big body at 6'2", almost 230. He's got 190 yards on the ground so far. This guy, a lot of fun to watch. There's not a lot of wiggle, but man, he's a one-cut guy, and he'll play with physicality. What has he brought to this offense?
Man, he's smooth. He's a smooth operator, man. He just kind of, like you said, it's kind of one cut, but also he just kind of weaves through traffic, and he'll also knock your block off if you get in the way. So, cool story with Sam is he was brought here to be a linebacker, and the Cowboys had injuries and lost so many dudes in the portal before they played in the Arizona Bowl in 2021. I want to say 21-22. Mm-hmm. And Craig Bowl moved him he said, hey, we need a running back. And he played running back in high school, and he hasn't gone back since. So he wasn't a part of any activities this offseason dealing with a nagging knee injury. But man, he's come out ready to roll. And also, I think he's got a chip. I mean, Jay Sawville completely rebuilt that entire running back room and basically said, hey, you're not the starter. You gotta work for this, man. And that's the other thing, dude. There's just competition across the board that has just made so many guys better. The 2 starting safeties were on this team last year, and they brought in 6 new guys on the back end in the transfer portal, and those guys won the job. They're getting pushed. And last year, you couldn't do it. You could threaten all you want that you're going to sit on the bench, but they knew damn well there's nobody you're bringing in. So Sam Scott has been really impressive. He's really good in the pass game as well. And then there's a lot of guys behind him that are really good. We got to see Samuel Tote Harris, a kid who was recruited by Utah out of high school. He was lightning in the San Antonio area out of the backfield. Yeah. Tore his ACL. The big boys got off him. Wyoming stayed on, and he had an 18-yard burst into the end zone in the 4th quarter. We finally got to see his wheel spin a little bit. Holy hell, dude's legit. So got him. Teron Kelman, a transfer from Charlotte. Yeah, I was gonna ask, he kind of had his coming out party against Northern Iowa as well. And Max White, a kid from Iowa, had a couple of nice runs in the game as well. So we haven't even seen Demaja Harris yet, which is their biggest running back out of North Texas. He hasn't even gotten a snap yet this year. So Jay Sawville said in the offseason, we want to be 8 deep. We want to have 8 dudes at that spot. And maybe not 8 deep, but 8. We want 8 dudes. Yeah. Because once again, they got caught with their pants down last year. They had, that's a bruising, tough position. Yeah. And, they ran out of bodies last year, and that's really Evan Svoboda was struggling under center. And Jay said, hey, man, there's a number of reasons we didn't make the move earlier at the quarterback spot, but the main one is we didn't have any running backs. He was our best running back. So, it is what it is. And now they've got running backs in spades, and Sam Scott's really done a nice job leading the way with those guys.
Impressive. I think Utah fans know that pain all too well with the running back and how quickly depth can evaporate there. So definitely, a good thing to have that depth there. Let's talk skill positions, wide receiver, tight end. Who are the names to know at those two position groups?
Chris Durr Jr., John Michael Gillenborg. Those are 1A and 1B, and they're interchangeable. They're the kind of problem for most teams where you go, who are we going to let not beat us? And with Akron, They really focused on John Michael Gillenborg, Wyoming 6'5", 245 tight end, who scouts, I believe 20-plus scouts have already been out to see him. He's really impressive. He's a guy who's definitely going to hear his name called if he can stay healthy this year. And then Chris Durr Jr., he's just lightning in a bottle. That dude, you can throw him the ball at the line of scrimmage, he'll turn that into a 40, 50-yard gainer in a heartbeat. He did that against Akron, 35-yard touchdown late in the fourth quarter. Lightning fast, kid out of the Chicago area. He played as a true freshman last year, and you saw real glimpses of what that cat can do. And, man, he's picked up right where he left off. And then you got a guy in Jalen Sargent who's from right there in Logan, Utah. His dad played for a little bit at Utah State. That was always his dream to play at Utah State. Wyoming's game for sure. And he's the real deep threat in this group. And what I love about Jalen, I talked to him on Monday, and I'm doing a story with him, this week. Mm-hmm. He was benched. He got benched in the first game, and he missed a couple assignments. And basically, what I'm getting at here, it's a new day, and now you have the ultimate motivator, which is the bench. And that's what happened to him. And to his credit, he said, I understand. I need to be better. And it showed the rest of the group. I don't care if you're a senior, you're going to ride the pine pony if you don't do what you're supposed to do. And he's got a great attitude about it. He was the first one over congratulating Chris Durr when he scored that touchdown in Akron. There's just a real positive mindset with this football team. And they really, truly, you hear, our brothers. Yeah. It really feels that way this year. And they wear shirts that say it's personal on the back, and you go, that's cute. It feels that way, and I feel that way about Utah. I mean, Kyle Whittingham's been there 21 years. They haven't made a bowl game twice. That team's pissed off and motivated. And I think for these two teams that are going to clash on Saturday night, it's personal is really fitting for both of them.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, right? Like we've talked a lot all offseason here, in Salt Lake City about the vibes around the program and how much of a difference that's made. So I'm fascinated to see this Wyoming offense and just team in general. And in looking at it, I'm looking at the offensive line and some of the numbers here. It seems like this group is off to a better start than the sort of level of play they had last year. It seems like things have been cleaned up a little bit. What's your assessment of the offensive line?
Yeah, man, it really helps to have guys like Jack Walsh and Caden Barnett and Wes King. And by the way, shout out to those guys. They have a podcast called Fat, Fatter, and Fattest, and they're terrific guys, and they're gamers, and they're guys that receive phone calls this offseason, and they stayed here. They weren't going to leave this program.
That's cool.
And that's the same with John Michael Gillenborg. That's the same with Chris Durr, Caden Anderson. These big schools pick at the carcass, so to say, of these other teams, and those guys stayed, and they turned down a lot of money in the process. So. Jack Walsh moved over to center. He's been a guard during his time at Wyoming. Caden Barnett was a tackle. He's moved over onto the inside. And Nate Geiger is a young kid. He got his first ever start as a redshirt freshman last year in the opener at Arizona, tore his knee 10 plays in. He's a guy who was probably the player of the game in a lot of ways against Northern Iowa. And Rex Johnson on the book in there on the right side, he struggled against Northern Iowa, but he might have been the player of the game against Akron. So those young guys are, kind of trading punches a little bit, kind of taking their lumps a little bit, but also swinging back. And they got some guys in there. The greatest thing you can hear, and I've heard this a bunch over in Laramie, is, coaches saying, I don't have to yell at them. Their teammates will do that. And honestly, I covered Michigan State for 2 years, and Tom Izzo would always tell me, if I'm still coaching you 3-4 months into the season, we ain't going to the Final Four. Player-led teams win championships, and that's exactly what this has been so far.
Yeah, that's been a message that Kyle Whittingham has reiterated many times over the last few years, is that, player-led teams are the ones that get to the championship, are the ones that are hosting the trophies, right? So I think that's a big thing to have that, in Wyoming. So let's shift to the other side of the ball, the defense side of the ball. You already mentioned Braden Johnson and how impactful he's been. He's a big body, 6'3", 240, 250 pounds. What has he brought? What is his game like at that linebacker spot?
So, what's really interesting about Braden is at the end of spring, all these cats wear GPSs, and, every player on this team has a GPS on their shoulder pads. He ran the most yards and most miles of any single player on this team. A linebacker, especially a big-ass linebacker like him, that really tells you everything you need to know about him. Workaholic, freak in the weight room, has all the measurables, and most importantly, has the chip on his shoulder. And I'm going to probably bring that up 100 times during this interview. Aaron Bull, the defensive coordinator, told him before Akron that, Akron's head coach Joe Moorhead said that we basically reloaded our defense with a bunch of guys from small schools. Braden goes into that game pissed off, registers 9 tackles, and picks off Ben Finley 2 yards deep in the end zone to thwart their only scoring opportunity of the night. So that kid has been incredible. It's really, you couldn't ask for a better start. Like I said, his PFF numbers are through the roof.
Yeah.
And last year they had, ingrained starters in Shea Suinoa and Connor Shea, guys who had been here for a really long time. And this is nothing against them whatsoever. They had nothing behind them. They were on the field for every single play. And the same can be said for the safeties. Now you got Enoch Sibumana, who was a North Dakota State transfer, won a national title last year. He could be a starter right now and isn't. Gary Rutherford might be the most talented guy on this defense. He has barely played this year. He did have a knee injury that slowed him up, but he's a guy who's not starting right now, and he was a shoe-in to be the starter. Evan Eller is a guy who came from Virginia Military Institute and asked the coaching staff last year to be redshirted because he felt like, I need a year to get bigger, stronger, get this defense down, and I'll be way more valuable to you next year. Can you imagine a player asking to be redshirted when he's fully able-bodied and healthy and ready to roll? And he did that. So you have and then Ethan Stolzat's another guy who was at Lindenwood. I mean, if you can point these places out on the map, do it. But these are a bunch of guys that were completely overlooked and ended up at small schools, and now they're here on the big stage. Braden Johnson said the spring game, the attendance at the spring game inside War Memorial Stadium is the most people he's ever played for in his entire life.
Oh, wow.
There was probably 4,000 people there. It was a packed house on Saturday, and he showed out again, man. And he's a guy that, like Savell said, you wish you had him for 3-4 years. And he's just an incredible player, and so far so good across the board. But the linebackers have been more than impressive across the board.
I'm looking at these PFF numbers. Like you mentioned, Braden Johnson, a 92.1 grade, Enoch Sibumana, a 90.7, and he's barely played. So these guys are making an impact. How would you describe this defensive scheme then? Because it seems like it puts these guys in positions to make plays and be impactful and be aggressive.
No doubt. And the word I keep hearing is communication. And, I asked Tice Westland, the Cowboys' best defensive end, what happened against Dampier last year? I'm talking 207 rushing yards on 12 attempts. I mean, it was hideous. Right. And he said, we didn't communicate. We were getting blown off the ball. It was just everything that could go wrong internally went wrong. And these guys are communicating. They're also, a lot of the defensive ends are standing up now, basically playing an outside linebacker spot. They're doing a lot of disguising, rushing three. They're just doing all kinds of different things, but it takes great communication to switch up your defense like that on the fly. And to be honest with you, I picked the Cowboys, I think 7th in the preseason media poll because I hadn't seen this defense. You have nine new starters. And to be fair, as great as they've been, the one thing they really haven't faced yet per se is adversity. And it's going to be really interesting to see because that's coming on Saturday. Yeah. I don't think anybody's going to be shocked to hear that. So what are they going to look like under duress? What are they going to look like when things aren't going right for a minute? Everything's gone right so far. But it takes unbelievable communication. And that's exactly what it's been, man. It's been really impressive. The other thing I've noticed on this defense, interviewing all these cats, they're very quiet, very quiet. Like they're listening. They're actually shutting up and listening, and they go to work. There's no outlandish crap. There's no boisterous guy. It's just, lead by example. And when guys talk, they're so quiet. I'm not kidding you. They are so quiet that when a guy talks, you effing listen, because they don't talk much.
Yeah.
And all they do is communicate. And Jay Savell said, it's cliche as hell, of course, but I want guys who live, sleep, dream, eat football 24/7. And he's really, honestly, he's found those dudes.
That's a huge credit to him and his staff. Like I'm amazed. You're talking about where these guys have come from. That speaks to the work ethic. That speaks to, his football mind and evaluation and ability to project players, at this level, coming up to this level for you guys. I'm coming into this game, and I think this is the toughest test Utah has had so far. They went on the road to Pasadena to play UCLA and marched right through the Bruins. Wow. Obviously, Cal Poly last week, an FCS program. This will certainly be Utah's toughest test, because I think Wyoming is also, coming into this one really confident. And as you're kind of pointing out, the vibes are good, the vibes are strong, and there's a lot of belief in that locker room, it sounds like. So want to get your thoughts on just how you kind of see this game playing out. What should fans expect at War Memorial Stadium, and then we'll talk maybe some tips, some recommendations for fans traveling there.
Yeah, so BYU came in last year. There's not the vitriol for Utah like there is for BYU, of course. But it's going to be a packed house. It's that
meme. It's the blood and Crip meme of just us united. Wyoming and Utah.
Is it ever? I got to admit, the fan came out of me for a second when that game was kicking off. BYU came running out with a Wyoming state flag, and I about puked in my soup. That one got me. I must say, I was not prepared for that.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be a sold out crowd, and I tell you what, I don't even mind telling you this. I don't think it's a crazy take by any means. War Memorial Stadium is the best atmosphere in the Mountain West, and to me, it's not particularly close. And yeah, I know Boise State's in the Mountain West for now. Their benches are about 100 miles from the stands, for one,
right?
And it's just not intimidating. It's just not. And I'm not dumping on Boise State fans. I know they have great fans.
Oh yeah,
but at War Memorial Stadium, they are on top of you. And listening to Kyle Whittingham's press conference, they don't have very nice things to say.
Yeah.
And, now I think they're kind of weak, to be honest with you. Like in the 80s and 90s, before cell phones, that's who raised me, was that student section. So now it's kind of weak in my opinion, but it's still really good. It's so good. It's so loud. It's an event, man. It's everybody in this square. This is exactly why I had I don't want to say guts, but that's exactly why I started 7220 Sports. Everybody in the square cares about the Wyoming Cowboys, whether it's that much or that much. And we may be the least populated state in the country, but this is an event. Everybody loves the Cowboys. There's no love lost for the state you live in whatsoever, or Colorado. So if you're coming in here with either one of those states, they want your hide, basically.
Yeah.
And, I love it. And it kind of pains me when you talk to some of these players. They're just so damn young.
Right.
And, they're just like, the fans really hate Utah a lot. And I go, yeah, they do. And he's like, oh, well, if they hate him, I hate him too. And it's just like, damn it. How do you come to the University of Wyoming and not know that you have to hate everything that's Colorado State, everything that's Utah? But a ton of respect for Utah. And I got to say, they could have easily canceled this game. This game was supposed to happen during COVID. And it probably would have been really, really easy to say, you know what, we thought about it. We have nothing to gain by coming to Laramie, Wyoming and playing this game. We win, we're supposed to. We lose, it's a huge upset. And hats off to Utah for doing that. And I hate to say it, do not tell anybody I said this. you got to give hats off to BYU too. They certainly didn't have to.
Oh, come on now. Come on now.
Don't ever tell anybody I said that.
Oh man, Cody, I appreciate it. And I think again, there's a lot of excitement for Utah fans going to this game because I think there's a lot of intense memories of what this game has been like in the past. So it'll be interesting to get back out there. So what recommendations do you have for people traveling out there? What food stops, anything like that?
I couldn't help but notice you didn't say bars.
Oh, you could throw out bars. You could throw out bars.
I'm just kidding. Yeah. I'm just kidding. I remember going to a bar. Maybe it was called Protocols or something. I had to pay like $18 just to get in the damn door. That's before I went to a game at the
Things have changed. Center. Things have changed, Cody.
Yeah, it's weird. Nobody would sponsor me for some damn reason. Laramie's awesome, man. I'm sure a lot of the old school Utah fans that are going to be going to this game know it's your prototypical college town. The bars are awesome. They're trashy. They're great. Cheap beer. There's a great place called Born in a Barn. It's a really small place, so you have to plan ahead. But peanut butter and jelly smoked wings. And then my friends over at the library, great place. It's going to be fun this weekend too. Any of you Bills fans or Kincaid fans, Bills Mafia is going to be here this weekend. The guy who dresses like Elvis at all the Bills games and sits in the corner, he saw the way that the Buckhorn Bar celebrated when Josh Allen got drafted, and he said, I got to go to that place. I got to be there. And him and his crew have driven from Buffalo, New York to Laramie for a game every year since Josh Allen got drafted. So those guys will all be tailgating out in the parking lot, and then they all hammer down at the library on Sunday and watch the Bills game and have a great time together. So it's a great atmosphere. Laramie's a blast. It's a total college town. Everything in that city revolves around the University of Wyoming, and everybody's really excited to have the Utes in town. And it's a big opportunity for this football program, man. You win this game, then Wyoming's got CU next in Boulder Saturday night, and the sky's the limit there. So it's a fun atmosphere. It's a fun game. Everybody's excited for it. So I certainly am too, and happy to see the Utes back, and not looking forward to going to Rice Eccles. That's a house of absolute horrors, but excited to see this game back on the roster or back on the schedule.
Yeah, for sure. I think, there's been a lot of criticism about why this game was on the schedule, but to your point, Utah kept it on there, and I think it's an easy one because you still have Wyoming coming back to Salt Lake City sometime down the road, which I think will be great. So, Cody,
old school fans, man, they appreciate it. Same with BYU. I talked to some BYU guys last year, and they're like, dude, they're still not in on this Big 12 stuff and the independent stuff. They're still locked in on the Mountain West, and love those guys.
It's just the regionality, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So much of that has been lost. And the fact that Colorado State and Wyoming are about to have a 2-year gap in the border war just makes me sick to my stomach. It really is. And I get it all, but it's gross. BYU and Utah need to play every single year. Colorado State and Wyoming need to play every single year.
Yep. I agree. Cody, you've been great, man. This has been awesome. Where can people find you to check out your work? You do a great job with 7220 Sports. Where can they find you?
I appreciate it. Yeah, 7220sports.com, on Twitter, on Facebook. I'm going to whatever I'm trying to say, put a story up that I wrote in 2019. I was at Rice Eccles Stadium for that, the name slipped my mind right now, that AAF football team or whatever. Remember the Salt Lake Mustangs?
Oh, yeah, the AFL. Yeah.
Stallions.
Stallions.
Yeah. So there were some Wyoming guys on that. And when I first started the website, we drove over to Salt Lake and covered a game. And I ran into Ron McBride on the sideline and chatted with Ron, and a great story. He's a great dude. Yep. And he was telling me some really funny stories about when he got the gig at Utah. They said, you've got to start beating Wyoming. We are not beating Wyoming. You have to start beating them. So I haven't even read the story in forever, but he took them to some terrible town in Utah, I want to say by Vernal. And he said, and he made him have training camp there. And he was if you guys can kick ass here, you can win in Laramie. And he was a trip, man. He was so fun to talk to.
That.
So I'll have that story up, and a lot of Utah stuff this week. Just did my podcast today too, so check it out. A lot of Utah stuff. Kind of put on the fan hat again and talked about some fun memories. Well, maybe not fun, but some memories of this Utah rivalry. Yeah, memories they are, and what I remember of them anyway. But yeah, just I like to have fun with these ones, man. I really miss playing Utah and BYU, and it's cool to see it happening again.
That's awesome, man. Cody, you've been great. Like I said, this has been a lot of fun. I think, like I said, this is an exciting matchup. Fans are going to be out there for it, and this should be a pretty competitive game, with the way that these two programs have kind of turned things around this offseason. So I look forward to getting out there to Laramie. Cody, we'll have to link up when we get out there, but appreciate you hopping on, man. This has been great.
You're going to love our new press box. It's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. Love it.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you having me on.
Yep.